everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Healing for the Soul. I am your host, Robin Stoltman, where every week I feature different guests to help you become the best version of yourself through different methods you may not have heard of or thought of. Today I have my guest, Terry Tucker, on the show talking about Motivational Check. So let's get started. Welcome, Terry, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Robin. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Awesome. So what is your specialty about this motivational check?
What is my specialty? I wish I had a specialty. I'm not so sure I have a specialty. I sort of have a story. I've had a 9-year journey through cancer that has seen my foot amputated, my leg amputated, tumors in my lungs. And I've just come to the point in my life where, there are certain things that I know that I have my 4 truths. I have the 3 F's, faith, family, and friends, that have gotten me through this. So I just kind of tell my story and talk a little bit about how I've gotten to this point, given that, there's an old Winston Churchill quote, the Prime Minister of Great Britain during World War II, who said, when you're going through hell, keep going. And that's kind of where I feel I am. I just keep going, and we'll see where things end up.
I love that attitude. It's kind of funny when you said about you go through hell, you just keep going. I was just explaining it to somebody yesterday. I'm like, I literally feel like I have put down every single flame of hell down, like where it needs to go. But you literally have done it yourself as well. And that's where I'm like, how did you, or what inspired you to start Motivational Check?
So, I was really kind of at a crossroads in my life. I had just had my foot amputated, and I sort of remember, laying in bed, kind of looking at the ceiling. There's that old joke, when we talk to God, it's called prayer. When God talks to us, it's called schizophrenia. So, God never spoke to me, but, I was just kind of looking at the ceiling like, okay, now what? What's next? Where do we go from here? And people started to suggest, hey, you should start a blog. You should start a blog. And I was like, I can barely turn my cell phone on in the morning. How can I possibly start a blog? I don't understand what a blog is. I don't understand how to do it. And so when I did decide to do it, literally, I started with 4 pages. It took me 4 months. And I swear that's not an exaggeration. I would do something, but like, I don't know what that means. I got to go research it. I'm sure my 25-year-old daughter could have done it in 15 minutes. But, for me, it was the process of going through it. And so Motivational Check is just, I put up a thought for the day every day with a little question, kind of, here's this thought, for your perspective, here's something to think about regarding that thought. And then on Mondays, I put up the Monday morning motivational message, which is a story or a video that's a little bit longer and things like that. So I always think of Motivational Check as, if you need a quick hit of inspiration during the day, go to Motivational Check, get it, and then get on with your day.
That is awesome. I really love that. It's quick, short, to the point. I think I'm probably one that needs that. So did you start the Motivational Check after having your daughter then?
Oh yeah. I started Motivational Check in 2019. And it was just one of those things that the name came from. I used to be a police officer, and when I was in the police academy, we had this phrase, Motivational Check, that if you were just having a bad day and you couldn't get through some of the physical stuff that we were doing, you could just like yell that out, and the rest of us would respond with our class number. We were the 84th recruit class, just to let the person know it's like, hey, we're all in this together. We're going to get through this together. We're all hurting right now, but hang in there and we'll make it through.
That is awesome. I think a lot of places, a lot of companies need to do that, not just the police force. I think that'd be it.
Yeah.
Really help.
Yeah. You're having a bad day. Just let people know and like, hey, we'll support each other.
Well, yeah. And then it's more better, loving environment, like for everybody to really help. Cause we're not alone on that. That's why I really like that Motivational Check. Cause when I was on your website, like I said that and I was looking through, I'm like, this is interesting. I haven't seen a blog website like this. And it was really neat for me when I had seen it. So I encourage any of my listeners or my viewers to go to the motivationalcheck.com website. Find inspiration on there. So how do you control the healthy aspect of being sick?
So there are several ways I talk about my four truths, and these are things that really over these last 9 years that I've been going through this cancer battle that I've come to know. I mean, they're part of my soul, for lack of a better word. I kind of consider them the bedrock of my soul. They're a good place to build your life on, and I'll give them to you. They're just one sentence, and I have them on a post-it note that I have here on my desk that I see multiple times every day. And the first one is you need to control your mind or your mind will control you. I remember back when I was 15 years old, I had knee surgery and I was a pretty good basketball player. You can't tell this from looking at me, but I'm 6'8" tall and I played college basketball. And when I went back playing after having that surgery, my mind kept putting these negative thoughts in, things like, hey, you're probably a step slower and coaches aren't going to want to recruit you to play in college. And I was like, no, wait a minute. I'm still playing at an elite level and coaches are still contacting me. So I had to flip that narrative. I had to take control of what was going in my mind and put something positive in there. So that's the first one. The second one is we need to embrace the pain and the difficulty that we all experience in life and use that pain and difficulty to make us stronger and more determined individuals. We're all going to experience pain in our lives. And it doesn't have to be like mine, cancer pain or a chronic illness. You could flunk a test at school or break up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or not get the promotion at work that you think you deserve. Pain is inevitable. Suffering, on the other hand, suffering's optional. Suffering's what you do with that pain. Do you use it to make you a stronger person? Or do you wallow in it and want to feel sorry for yourself and let other people feel sorry for you? And that totally is a choice. And it's totally your choice on how you want to deal with that. But I mean, you're looking at me right now. There's no S on my chest. I don't wear a cape. I'm a human being. I have bad days. There are days I cry. There are days I get down. There are days I feel sorry for myself. I just don't let myself stay in that position. I just keep trying to move forward regardless of how bad I feel. So that's the second one. The third one is more of a legacy truth, for lack of a better term. And it's this: what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of other people. I think it's important for us to think.
That is true.
Yeah, I love that one. I mean, it's probably one of my favorites. And it's, we all need to kind of think of the end game, the end of our lives. What are people going to say about us at our funeral? And I'm not telling people to live a life that other people want you to live. You have to live a life that's true to yourself. But what are people going to say about your funeral? Would your ancestors be proud of the life that you have lived? They set the table for you. How did you set the table for the next generation? So that's number 3. And then number 4 is pretty self-explanatory. As long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. So I use those truths to kind of get me through bad days, hard days, tough days. And so far they have.
Well, that is really, really helpful, especially because those are very strong. Like they're very strong facts where you can hold on to them and just like, no, this is how I'm going to keep going. So how do you keep going then? You just, you talked about going through all of the flames of hell and you still keep going.
Yeah, I mean, this. Our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. So to the brain, the status quo is good. Don't mess with it. Just keep things the way they are. But the only way we're going to grow, the only way we're going to get better is if we step outside those comfort zones. And I try to myself, and I always recommend to people, every day you should do something that makes you uncomfortable, something that scares you, something that, could potentially be embarrassing for you, because in that regard, you're going to learn that you have certain strengths that you didn't have before. And then when the big stuff comes up, you're going to be like, hey, I handled this and I handled this and I handled this. I can handle this. I can get through this. So that's kind of a way that, that I just try to keep myself going. And instead of running from pain, and we all want to do that. We want to get away from pain. And, some people do dumb things. They turn to alcohol or drugs or bad behavior. What I'm saying is do the opposite. Take that pain, flip it inside, burn it as fuel or use it as energy to make you a stronger individual. I can promise you that you can do it, because I am the biggest wimp in the world when it comes to pain and discomfort. So if I can do it, I know anybody out there can do it.
I wouldn't know about the wimp part, but I would know, like, everything you're saying is very, very, very true. There's so many people that turn to these different ways is more harmful. And it's like, how do you not do that? And that's actually, like, I get that question a lot myself with my own things that I've gone through. And it's really, really everything you've been saying, for being able to come down to those 4 pillars of
Yeah.
really of the strengths of, you control your mind or it'll control you. And that's like the biggest thing I tell everybody. Like, you have to be able to control it. And they're like, well, you can't. Well, you can control your emotion, like what you've been saying.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. So then what have you found, like, the best first come up with the first pillar? Like, what point for
Could you say that one more time? You kind of cut out on me.
At what point did you come up with the first pillar as really, this is what to help you get through?
I think I learned that first one kind of at an early age when I talked about experiencing knee surgery. I actually had 3 knee surgeries in high school, and I learned that, your brain will attack you, if you want to do anything outside the status quo. But then I also realized the only way I was going to grow was to get outside, that comfort zone and to do things that were difficult. And, especially with basketball, that, there are certain skills when you first start them, it's like, man, I'm terrible at this. Well, life makes it very easy for us to quit, to give up. As soon as we come up against a little bit of a, somebody pushing back or something, oh, that was hard. I mean, if I quit every time, I started to practice a skill because I wasn't any good at it, there's no way I would have played in college. And I think that applies to any skill whatsoever. There was a basketball coach at the University of Indiana many years ago by the name of Bobby Knight, very famous man. And he used to talk about that mental was to physical as 4 is to 1. And, here's this guy who's basically teaching athletes to use their bodies. But what he's really saying is, yeah, all this body stuff, great. But your mind is 4 times more important to your success on the basketball court as your body is. And so if you can't control your mind, if you can't deal with defeat, if you can't deal with, all the stressors that go along with whatever we're doing, and this doesn't just apply to basketball, it can apply to anything you do in life, then there's absolutely no way you're going to be successful at it. And so, I always tell people, especially when it comes to pain, my pain is going to end someday. It may end through medication. It may end through surgery. Quite frankly, it may end when I die. But if I quit, if I give up, if I give in to pain, then pain will always be a part of my life.
You're making me think about my own life. With a lot of the pain. I really, really appreciate this. This is speaking to me. I know it's for everybody else, but I'm like, this is really speaking to me on a lot of things that I'm currently going through and that I have gone through. And it's like, yeah, I love this. This is very, very exciting. So what tips do you have that would help our audience really take charge of their health?
I think, first of all, you've got to be responsible for your own health and well-being. And I am the kind of person that I just didn't, but I know people who've done this. I just don't turn my physical being over to a doctor and say, okay, I got cancer. I'm going to do whatever you say. And I mean, I'm sure my doctor at times wants to beat me over the head with a 2x4 for, asking, why are we doing this, or what's next, or where we're going from here. But I want my life to be based on the decisions that I made, not the ones that I didn't, or the ones that other people made for me. So I ask a lot of questions. I try to be an informed patient. And there have been some times where, like it was suggested early on, that I try vitamin C therapy, high dose vitamin C therapy. And so I have access to a oncology pharmacist. And I went to her and I said, hey, I want to do this. What do you think? And she's like, well, let me get back to you. Let me do some research. And she came back and she said, you can do this, but all it's going to do is counteract the drugs that we're giving you. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like, okay, that's science behind that. I get it. And then a couple months ago, I read an article about some doctors over in Portugal who were using DHA, which is a fatty fish oil that is very good for your heart, but they were having some success with it kind of as a Trojan horse for cancer cells, where the cancer would take up the DHA and be destroyed. And so I went to my pharmacist again and I said, hey, I want to start taking DHA. What do you think about that? All right, hang on a second. Let me go research it. And she came back and she said, no, you're on a blood thinner right now because of a blood clot I had in my lung from some therapy I had years ago. She said DHA promotes bleeding. So you could be at a higher risk of bleeding. It's like, okay, I mean, that's science, but at least you're saying, hey, I want to do this, or what about this? And you're making somebody give you an answer. And that would be another thing I would suggest. Make sure your healthcare provider is giving you an answer that you understand. If they're giving you doctorese or medicalese or stuff like that, make them say, no, you know what? I'm sorry, I didn't go to medical school. Explain that to me like a human being. I don't get what you're saying. Tell me what's going on so that I can understand it. And if you can do that, then we'll be good. I'm good. But until you can do that, I still want to do this. You better tell me why I can't do it or why I should do it. So I think it's real important we take an active role in our own healthcare. And the other thing I guess I would say are there's kind of two stories here. One is our bodies can do so much more than we ever thought that they could do.
Yes.
And
a ton
more. And I remember a story that I had read about a research project that a professor had done at Johns Hopkins University back in the 1950s. And it was a very simple experiment. He took rats and he put them in a tank of water that was over their head. And he wanted to see how long the rats could tread water. And most rats treaded water for about 15 minutes. And right as they were ready to sink and drown, he reached in and grabbed them, pulled them out, dried them off, and let them rest for a while. And then he took them and put them back in that exact same tank of water. And the second time around, those rats treaded water for 60 hours. Think about that. 15 minutes. That's all I can do the first time. Oh, I'm tired. I can't go. I'm going to drown. 60 hours the second time, which told me two things. One, the importance of hope in our lives. We've got to have hope that there's something better, that we're moving towards something that's better in our lives. And two, just how much more our physical bodies can handle. And I have a friend who's a former Navy SEAL, some of the toughest men, I think, in the world in the Navy. And they have what they call their 40% rule, which kind of dovetails with this story. And all that is if you don't think you could swim another lap or run another step or do another push-up, you're only at 40% of your maximum. And you still have another 60% left to give to yourself. So whenever your audience thinks, hey, you know what, I'm at the end of my rope, you're not at the end of your rope. You have so much more left to give to yourself.
That is awesome. I had to write down the 40% rule. And that's only at the max. That's 40% of what you think you can do, but you can still do more.
Right.
I love that. I've never heard of that before. I've always heard of the 80-20 rule.
Yeah,
that's
80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all well versed on that one.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we know that one, but I like this rule a lot better because that's still 60% left to still keep going and give it your all. Because I know like a lot of people, they know that, like I also consider myself new in the business because it's like I'm going my 4th year in business.
Okay.
And so there's days that I'm just like, I literally feel, I was telling a person this earlier, that I literally feel like I am throwing spaghetti noodles on my wall, on my cupboard in this case. And I'm just like, I'm just hoping that something sticks, but I'm still doing it. And then I'm questioning, why am I still doing this? And it's like, there's days I just want to give up, but I like this. I still got the 60% there who says, keep going no matter what. I really love that a lot. So
It's great. I mean, it really, if you realize that and you think about that, and like I said, there's no S on my chest. I don't have a cape on. I have bad days. And when I have those bad days, I remember those two stories. It's like, no, get up. You have so much more left to give to yourself. So, maybe that's a story that other people can hear. And when they get down, when they get depressed, when they don't think they can move forward, just remember those stories. I mean, they're true stories. I mean, it's not like, it's a fairy tale. It actually, the Navy SEALs are some of the toughest men in the world. And, they get to a point where I don't think we can go on. Well, yeah, you can. You just got to push yourself past that level of discomfort. It's kind of like when you're running, and I mean, I don't have a leg anymore. So, I mean, I don't run very much anymore. True. But, when you would run, it would be hard. It would be hard. It would be hard. And you kind of hit a wall. But if you kept running, eventually you would start to feel better. You'd kind of pass through that difficult time, and that now you're in the groove, you're in the mood, and you're moving forward, and you're feeling a whole lot better. So it's that same kind of principle. Even when you're feeling lousy, just keep going forward. And I always tell people, we talk about winning the day. When I one of the other therapies I was on was a drug called interferon for my cancer. And I took a weekly interferon injection for almost 5 years. Oh, and wow. Every week, the side effects of those interferon injections where I had severe flu-like symptoms. So imagine having the flu every week for 5 years. And during that time, there were days I prayed to die. I literally prayed to God. It's like, please kill me. Please let me come home right now because I'm just done with this. But, I talked about winning the day. Sometimes winning the day was just getting from the bed to the couch. That's all I could do. But you know what? That was winning the day. And I felt good about that. So, tomorrow when I have, whatever I have to do, I have to go to therapy, I have to go for treatment. You know what? I'm going to win that day. I'm going to, I did it yesterday. I can do it today. I did it today. I can do it tomorrow. You just got to keep moving forward.
Trying to not cry.
Don't cry. This is good.
No, it's. There's so many times that we're hard on ourselves. Like we're always our own worst enemy. Just gonna say it because I know I'm not the only person. When you're talking about like the couch, like getting from where you are to the couch, even just celebrating that small win, reminded me I've had to learn how to walk twice in my life, other than the first time when I was first born. Right. But it's like I never even stopped and thought about all of the small wins that I have every day.
Yeah. I mean, think about
this big.
Think about if you want to improve in something, whatever it is. We look at, say, we'll go back to the 80-20 rule for business. Say you want to be a better salesperson. Well, that is a huge goal to accomplish. But what if you broke that down and said, I'm going to get 1% better every day? 1% better every day. At the end of 30 days, you're 30% better. At the end of 2 months, you're 60% better than when you started. And it's much easier to get 1% better every day as a salesperson than it is to say, I got to get better at sales. I mean, that's just so large and so big, you can't wrap your, it's like kind of the old joke, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You've got to shrink it down to something we can all handle. Just get 1% better every day. And think how much better you're going to be at the end of the month.
You're making me think so much. I love this. Man, how does your wife deal with you?
My wife is so great and so supportive. And I always say that, these last 9 years, almost 10 years now have been, if it wasn't for her, I would have been dead a long time ago. So, she kind of like, yeah, go do your podcast. I'll go make the money because, it's, but she's absolutely wonderful, supports me. Our daughter supports me. I have a great family. I always tell the story when I have tumors in my lungs and when I went to my oncologist, she's like, well, we're going to put you on chemotherapy. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. Will it save my life? He's like, yeah, probably not. I said, so you want me to just basically feel lousy for however many months before I die? I said, I don't think I want to do that. So I said, but I'll go home and tell my family. So I go home and I'm sitting in the kitchen talking to my family. Oh, my daughter's automatically, okay, we got to have a family meeting. I'm like, family meeting? There's 3 of us. It's not like we got a big board or something like that. So we sit around the table and we tell our individual, how do we feel about this? And then my daughter's like, all right, let's take a vote. How many people want dad to have chemotherapy? And my wife and my daughter raise their hand. I'm like, wait a minute, am I getting outvoted here? From my family. But I remembered, again, a story from the police academy when our defensive tactics instructor used to have us bring a photograph of the people we loved the most to class. And we were to look at that photograph as we were learning different techniques to defend ourselves, to save our lives. Because he reasoned, you'll fight harder for the people you love than you'll fight for yourself. So
that is true.
It is. I took chemotherapy because I loved my family more than I love myself. And I'm glad I did, because I'm still here.
That's true. I'm glad that you're still here.
Thank you.
And now I like that reason why to have a picture. Like they always talk about like the why makes you cry. Yeah, I like your version of the why a lot better.
Good.
I'm just saying, because that really shifted my perspective of like, yes, I will die for my kids. I don't care. I would do anything for them, because we will. That's
right.
Actually why I started my business, was after having kids. I never started it beforehand.
Right.
It's actually for them. So no, I love that. So you learned a lot in that, like, it's like the police academy taught you a lot. Obviously, we know this, but that really seems like that's what gave you the strength through all of this too, when you were trying to find that hope to keep going.
I think that,
yes, like it helped the aspects.
It certainly did. And I credit a lot of what I believe or where I am to the years I played team sports. I started when I was 9 and played all the way up through college. And one thing that team sports taught me was to be part of something bigger than yourself. And, you knew as part of a team that if you didn't do your job, not only were you letting yourself down, but you were letting, your teammates down, your coaches down, your fans down, your parents down. And if you think about it, the biggest team game that we all play is this game of life. So, the attitude of, hey, it's all about me. Guess what? It's not about you. The world doesn't owe you a thing. If you want something, you got to get out there and you got to fight for it, and you got to make it happen for yourself, because it's not going to come to you. You've got to go get it. So I always look at team sports as being part of something bigger than me. And I'm on a clinical trial drug now for the tumors in my lungs that more than likely is not going to save my life. But the doctors may get information from all my blood tests and all my scans that might save somebody's life 5 years from now or 10 years from now, long after I'm dead. And for me, that's part of being, part of something bigger than yourself. And that to me makes my life have even more meaning, even if I'm not here.
That is very, very, very true. Because part of leaving that legacy, like you talked about earlier too, things I talked to a few people about now is like, what is it that you want to be able to leave behind? Because your children are literally the gifts you leave behind to this world. And like what you teach them, you're teaching to other people about how you lived your life.
Yeah. And I always, with our daughter, I never wanted to be one of those helicopter parents that kind of, swooped in and solved everything. When bad things would happen, I would kind of step back and be like, okay, good. Let's see how she handles this. Not in a physical, if she was ever in physical danger, but, when things would happen at school or things like that. And I'll never forget when she got my height and actually she went to the Air Force Academy to play basketball. And when she made that decision, I told her, I said, okay, now you've got to call these other coaches that were interested in having you come there and tell them you've made your decision. You're not coming. She's like, no, I'll just send them a text. I'm like, no, you won't. This was about relationships. This was about developing relationships. You're going to call them on the phone. And she was like, I don't like, yeah, you don't know what to do because you've never talked on the phone before in your life. So we'll role play this for a while. And we did. And it was great because some coaches were like, congratulations, you made a great choice. Good luck to you and stuff like that. And other coaches yelled at her. And, she would get off the phone. She's like, he was not happy. And I'm like, well, what did that tell you? Well, I don't know. I said, maybe it told you that all he cared about was making, getting you into his program so that they could be better. and he didn't really care about you as a person or as a student or anything like that. So you got to be careful about the people you develop relationships with. And I always say, Robin, if I didn't know you, but I knew the 5 people you hung around with the most, I could tell you almost everything about you, because we are a product of the people we hang around with. And if you're around people that are negative and not having your best interest in mind, get those people out of your life. Only put people in your life that are going to uplift you. But understand that if that's the case, those people may tell you the truth and you don't want to hear the truth. They may say, Terry, you're making a huge mistake. Don't do that. And what do? Oh, I don't like what he said, so he's not my friend anymore. Well, that's stupid.
It is.
That's the person you want in your life that'll tell you the truth. And I've had so many people come up to me during my journey and will be like, Terry, I could never do what you've done. I could never go through what you've gone through. And I kind of look at them sort of, smart alecky and be like, yeah, you're right. You couldn't, because up here, you've already decided you couldn't do it. You've already decided you couldn't make it. Why would you try anything going into it with the attitude of, yeah, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to be successful. Why not go into it with the attitude that, yeah, this is going to be great? I mean, I remember in college, guys used to go out partying and then take a big test the next day. They'd walk into the test hungover, and what do they say? Oh man, I'm going to bomb this test. Why would you say that to yourself? Why wouldn't you at least give yourself a chance to be successful? To say, you know what? I paid attention in class. Yeah, I partied last night, but I know what's going on here. I'm going to do great on this test. I mean, going into it and telling yourself you're going to bomb it, yeah, you're pretty much going to bomb it.
I think I'm going to listen to this podcast a ton myself.
Good.
Just saying, because you are definitely hitting home for me. So either you were watching me on Facebook or on Instagram, one of the two, but you definitely hit a lot of the spots for me. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure my audience does too, because this is very good, like refreshing, like I want more of this. I love everything that you're saying. It just really resonates with me. And it's kind of like my own wake-up call in a way. I was not expecting that. So
it's a good way to end the week, right?
Yes, it is. So what's the best way for the audience to get a hold of you?
So basically, if you go on Motivational Check, my blog, motivationalcheck.com, you can leave me a message. You can get access to my book. You can find my social media sites. You can see the thought for the day. So the best way to get a hold of me is motivationalcheck.com.
Awesome. Oh, and I forgot about your book too. Did you just launch a new one? Was it?
I did about a year ago. I launched a book called Sustainable Excellence, the 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. And I actually wrote that book in the 3-month period that I was healing after I had my leg amputated and I started chemotherapy for the tumors in my lungs. I figured, there wasn't much good on Netflix, so might as well do something productive.
Well, I agree with you there on the productive part. So it's like, you can always tell a difference. I even told my husband, I'm like, you can tell a difference between a person who wants to get better versus somebody who doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, you go to Walmart, all the people are buying up DVDs, and the other people, like myself, are buying up books like Atomic Habits and these other ones.
Yeah, I love to read too. Yeah, you know what? I want knowledge. I want information. Yeah.
Yes, very, very much so. Well, I appreciate it so much, Terry, for being on the show here on Healing for the Soul. I look forward to being able to talk with you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yep. Bye.